Hi, I'm Dr. Ruby Payne, and we have rewritten the Bridges book, significantly revised it, and we are looking at it as an economic development tool for communities. And we look at it in four sections in the book: the individuals, institutional, community, and policy. Basically, we are looking at communities through the lens of economic class and what that means as we work to bring communities together. We define poverty and wealth as a set of resources. So in the first section of the book, the individual section, we look at individual resources and how those resources stabilize or destabilize people's lives. We learn the hidden rules of economic class. How you spend your time determines what you know, and how you spend your time in a survival environment, i.e. poverty, is very different than how you spend it in a stable environment, i.e. middle class, is very different from how you spend your time when there's a plethora of resources and you are negotiating larger frames of reference. And we look at how those make for hidden rules. Hidden rules are unspoken cueing mechanisms people use to let you know that you do or don't belong. Then we look at how you educate both resourced and under-resourced in order to begin the shift in your community. What we know is this: a lot of approaches to poverty have failed is because they do not educate the resourced about the reality of being under-resourced. And because the resourced tend to make the laws and policies, then we get skewed understandings of how things work. And they're not necessarily as successful as when there's an accurate mental model. Section 2 of the book looks at institutional issues. And one of the we look at is how you take a client life cycle and make your institution much more approachable and applicable and workable for the population that you're serving. We look at how silos actually impede the development of community development. One of the things we've learned over the 20 years we've been doing this is that if the institutions don't change in a community, and if they function as silos, then basically the community cannot grow and thrive, okay? And then the last thing we look at is how you put under-resourced people on your boards. One of the things we know is that when you do that, you get much better solutions to problems and issues because they understand a reality from a different perspective. It's more accurate, and it helps the community function much better. At the community level, we look at how you engage all sectors of a community. Poverty touches every sector in every community. Law enforcement, 70% of arrests are with people in poverty. Hospitals, people who don't pay their bills, people who don't qualify for services, people who use the emergency room as the primary care system. We look at it in education, healthcare, higher ed. If you look at the number of under-resourced individuals who don't finish college, we look at it in churches and myriad opportunities, workplace stability, how the workplace makes a difference in whether you can be employed or not. Then we look at how you take a community and begin actually building a human infrastructure. In other words, how do you build a structure in your community that humans can actually participate and thrive? And what does that look like? And then we look at ROI, return on investment. It's not enough for us to say that you should help people get by. We believe that you should help them also get ahead. And how do you help that make a community thrive then? And communities as well, because they are a support network for an individual, you, me, everyone. Then we look at policy. All four causes of poverty need to be addressed if you're going to have a policy that works. What we're finding is a lot of communities pick one of the causes of poverty. They really address that, but they don't address the other three. And so then they're baffled why their interventions didn't work. Then we're going to talk about how you actually identify and eliminate barriers. There are many barriers to success. Like, for example, we had a county in Ohio that they were having difficulty meeting their payroll because of a problem they were having with both their law enforcement and their hospitals. In other words, they couldn't afford their jails anymore. And a judge who knew our work came to them and said, look, if you will give me $10,000. I think I can save you 50. They said, what do you mean? She said, well, you arrest someone, you put them in jail. It's at least a week till they even get to go to court, which means they lost their job. Okay. Then if we put them on probation, we require them to have an ankle bracelet and pay $150 for the ankle bracelet. She said, well, they've lost their job. They can't afford an ankle bracelet. So if they don't get an ankle bracelet within a certain number of days, we rearrest them and put them back in jail. She said, every day they're in jail, it costs you $150. She said, if you would just let me buy them and give them to them. She said, you know what? I'm sure they'll give them back. Then we could save incredible money. And they actually did. If I remember correctly, it was closer to 80,000 that they saved. So how do you eliminate barriers? And then we look again at human infrastructure. And I want to make a comment about this. One of the things that we know, and Dwight Eisenhower knew after he came back from World War II, is that the reason the Allies beat the Nazis is basically they had better supply chains. So he came back and he set up the interstate highway system, which became an infrastructure that made us an industrial powerhouse. Well, now we make our money off of intellectual capital. People make it out of ideas in their head. And the question becomes this: how do you build an infrastructure that supports the development of intellectual capital, a human infrastructure that supports and develops human potential? And we look at how we do that through policy. So the book is fascinating. It's just been rewritten. It's excellent. It's based on 20 years of in-depth, in-person, in community, in institutions, understandings that we've crafted over the years. We hope that it makes a huge difference for your community.